This chapter contains themes of child abuse, slavery, rape, nudity, and patriarchal attitudes. Medieval life was often violent and cruel. This chapter is not suitable for children, and some adults may find it disturbing. Hello, this is Peter Adkison, and I'm with Steve Conard. We co-direct the Chaldea series, and we're here to chat it up about this chapter while we play it in the background. We will be talking over the audio, so if you haven't watched Chapter 1 yet, we recommend you first watch the version without the commentary, so you can enjoy it without our yammering.
My name is Maurko Hamalgrar. In the summer of 39, I accepted a first-of-its-kind position in a first-of-its-kind publication.
So here is the first time we see Maurko. We got to hear him in the prologue, but now we get to actually see him.
Little did I
sitting in there in
realize
his
that this
KI office.
responsibility would become my life's calling, delivering the news. Before my arrival, the KI was knee-deep.
The voiceover for Maurko Hamalgrar is performed masterfully, as always, by Eric Ray Anderson.
Legitimacy, integrity, truth. These would be the KI's new mandate.
The musical score for this chapter was composed by Eric Spire, and this chapter was illustrated by Studio Volts.
At the beginning is as good a place as any. I remember the first time I met Yo, boldly barging into my office, demanding information as if
Maurko has a love of
ancient
mushrooms.
sage of the
So whenever you
mountains.
see Maurko in his office or at home,
And
you
yet,
see mushrooms
despite
growing
his
everywhere.
cocky confidence
collects
and
mushrooms.
devil-may-care attitude, he
So
had
this
a
is
boyish
Maurko
charm,
beginning the story at the
gumption,
beginning where he's writing it
impossible not to
from a
admire.
future
So,
date. So what you're seeing
I
here is in the
answered
far-flung
his damn
future.
question. The expression
Yes,
"It's
so
fate" is
Maurko
an
Hamalgrar
attitude,
is our
as if
narrator, but
mortals
he's also
were
a
somehow
character in the
manipulated
story.
by the
And the
strings of
Chaldea
cosmic
story is
puppeteer,
told
their
by
actions
a
not
future
their own.
Maurko the future,
But
who
still,
is
There
reflecting
was
back
no denying
on this
something larger
period
was
of Chaldea
guiding young
history.
Yonnus
And
Octoni's
more
life.
specifically here, he is reflecting
Who am I
back
kidding?
on the first time he
No
meets
one
Yo.
controlled Yo.
So this is Augstat, the capital
The
of Hesse,
city of Augstat,
in the kingdom,
the
in the
kingdom
continent of
Hesse.
Nisha. So this is
Roughly
most of season 1
50,000
takes
souls
place
inhabited the
in this
capital
city.
of the kingdom of Hesse.
Yes,
Small
that's true, and this is a
establishment by
great
imperial
piece of art
standards.
illustrating
There
the
were
city.
more sizable Jews in the crown,
This is
such
a
as
central
Saratov,
location for I think
Regis,
maybe 2
Bonsoir,
seasons,
and the city
maybe
of
before
Gleam.
and I always like the
Despite
idea of
some
adventurous
derision as
travel.
backwater,
You know, they don't.
politically
This is not going to be a
stunted
story all
city,
set in
however,
one city. Now we have the
Augstat was
Sarva
by far the
story.
most
She starts off
affluent
in a
and
different
vital
city, then she's
port
going
on
to come
the
here, but then she's
continent
going
of
to leave,
Nisha.
and
The
eventually, and
36th year
Zane,
of Emperor
the Zane story
Kordava's
takes place in a
reign.
different city, in the city of Ash, in the kingdom of Dorsang. So our characters are going to get around. You're going to see a lot of different places, regions, countries, cities, fortresses, the orcs in Niche over the course of time. It's our hope that it really feels like a world, and that these characters are trying to find their place in a much larger setting.
The interesting thing about Augstat is I think we had written almost 3 seasons before we did this map. And so pretty much every major set piece that it happens in the first 3 seasons in this city is actually on this map, and I can see the locations right here. I could point to them. We went right down to the street level and designed the city planning. Everything, every major character, where they live, their address, it's freakish detail. And so it's all right there. We did a top-down map. We did many different versions of a map for this city before we actually illustrated
Guildhouse,
we call this the
district of
skyline view.
guilds.
So yeah, we
All
love
businesses in
Augstat.
Hesse were organized into guilds.
I like the idea
and all
of a
guild
setting
headquarters
that
were
is
located in Guildhouse.
important, but not
Over time,
super
Guildhouse
important. Like
had become the
Augstat
Lotari for
is a capital of Hesse.
industrious Hessen
Hesse, in the
workers,
overall scheme of the
the envy
of the whole
of the business
empire,
world.
is second
Within
tier
this
out.
bustling
When
city
the Emperor of
stood a
Chaldea
small
does not live
business.
here. He lives
Octoni
far away in
Armory
another
and
city, in
Smithworks.
another kingdom.
Fed
And
off the marrow of
the
Soldot's
characters
Hay,
will
one
have
of
to
Ogstad's busiest
sort of earn
arterials,
their
the
place
street was carved
at
day
being
and night
in
by
the
those
center of
delivering
things.
goods and
They won't
services
be
from kingdoms,
from the beginning.
territories, and trading posts the world over. If the
And
ancient
I think a
cobblestone
nice
street
job
could tell tales,
to Steve
it would
and
regale
the
an
art
audience
department
with
on
stories of high commerce,
medieval
wars,
Germanic architecture here.
and the dark times
We
before Emperor
had a lot
Kordavan.
of fun sort of crafting what these buildings, I should say Steve did, what the buildings would be like in this Germanic sort of kingdom.
I love architecture, so this was a real hoot. Plus, I got to go to Europe and take a look around. That's not only the reason why I went there, but when I was there, I was looking at a lot of architecture.
Yeah, I remember when we did our Steve and I and our wives and my other BFF Adrian, we did a cruise down the Rhine River, and I think that we were taking in a lot of the architecture from that region during the course of that cruise.
Yes, spent a great deal of the time. I know you went to a lot of museums, and then I was looking at buildings.
You were looking at a lot of bars, I think.
That too.
was older,
I don't think so.
stronger, and merciless.
Brothers will recognize this. Anybody who's grown up with a brother, you've beaten the hell out of each other. It always starts off fun until someone gets their nose whacked or knuckles or something.
Yeah, and just take it back, Goaty was based off of Go, was CJ's character's brother, Yo and Go.
Yep. And again, they're the guys, the biggest name in the world is Kordavan, right? And so they're out playing. Guess who's going to play Kordavan? I'm playing Kordavan. No, you're not. You get to play the demon that gets his ass kicked. Yeah, there were six boys in my family, and there was definitely a pecking order. My older brother, Perry, would beat the hell out of me, and then I would beat the hell out of Tom, and then Tom would beat the hell out of Jerry, and it just went down from there. They say, write what you know.
Father.
Yeah, so this is going back to, CJ's, I sat down one time over lunch, I think, and I asked him about his background, and he's like, oh, my father was a crooked businessman, blacksmith. Like, he was crooked. So that's why, Yo originally started off as somewhat of a crooked character, right? Street urchin and, that sort of thing. So we pay homage to that original design.
Yeah, I think when CJ rolled up when Yo was first level, I think it was an assassin.
Yeah,
yeah.
He started off as assassin, a street guy.
Yeah, assassin. So assassin, rogue, you know the type. And so we're gonna see the circumstances that tend to head a character in that direction. And our Dan here is a reference to our kingdom that is inspired by pre-Islamic Arab culture, and we had a lot of fun. We get to explore more of that in other places.
Done for the day?
But
That was my last
Yo is
Ready to work with me tomorrow?
primarily of
And on
our
Faircraft
Dan
Day to boot.
background.
No. Tend to the horses.
And by the way, Yarborg is actually his father's original name. We didn't even make that one up.
Yeah. If you're looking for some meaning of Yarborg or some validity within Middle Eastern culture for that name, no, this is us honoring the fact that CJ came up with this name as the name of his father. So we had to do that.
But when it came to training,
I've always thought
tasks involving
this one panel
mindless
tells a full
drudgery,
story right
the
there.
lion's share
The
fell
father
to Yonnus.
putting his arm on Yo's older brother and sending Yo off to tend to the horses. That's,
Right, and Yo being, the half son, right?
Yep.
Half son, is that? I don't think that's how you say it.
Absolutely. A bastard child, and yeah. That's a mystery that will eventually be resolved as to what exactly the familiar relationships are.
But what we do know is that Yo and Goaty are half brothers. That's actually correct.
Yes.
How that all came about is, well, we'll figure that out through the story. That's why we're
Yeah.
telling the story.
It will be revealed in time.
The dinner hour.
I
By
think
the
this
time
is
Yonnus finished his chores, his
something really
mother,
sad
Calla,
here is
had already
we
served
don't.
his
I'll
father and
point it
brother
out because
their
it's a little
evening meal.
subtle. It took me a while before I
Yonnus,
really noticed
bring
it.
your sister to
That
the
his
table.
sister over in the right,
Come
Yo's
here.
sister has a doll,
Yes.
and they're both injured.
Yasmin,
in the
Yonnus'
same-
younger sister, was the spitting image of her
Yeah,
mother.
I think here.
What happened to Cece?
She
Yeah, one
tended
thing here
wounds,
is not
both
only
real and
about the
imagined.
abuse that's
Daddy
happening,
hurt her.
domestic violence that's happening in this home,
Injuries
but
in
also
this
the fact
home
that
were all
this
too
home, that Yo's
commonplace.
family, are themselves immigrants
Yonnus and
from another
Yasmin
kingdom.
ate
They're an
with their
Ardean
mother after
Arabic
Godi
sort
and
of
his father
family
finished,
in
as was
a
customary
Germanic
at every
kingdom.
evening meal.
So, I think we worked
A
hard to paint
sickle
as many
sword of
disadvantages
Ardean
for this
influence
character
and
as possible.
design, newly forged, lay on the table in front of
The
Godi.
voiceover for
What's that? Father made
Godi
it for
was
me for
performed
trademark.
wonderfully
It's
by Teddy
flawless.
Van E.
It even has my name on it.
Yo's mother didn't like tools from the workshop in the family great room. But no matter how much she complained, they always wormed their way in. She also didn't abide foolishness, especially the kind of foolishness men and boys were prone to when they wrapped their knuckles around the hilt of a blade.
Not at the table!
The voiceover for Yo's mother, Carlina, was performed
May I
by
hold it?
Amy Danica.
Like you'd know what to do with a real sword.
The voiceover
In
for
a few
Yo's
years,
sister,
I'm
Yasmin,
gonna be the best
was
swordsman
performed
in
by
all of
Veronica
Ogstead.
Kelly.
You're not even better than me.
Enough! Neither of you will ever be swordsmen. You're going to run the metalworks like your father. End of story.
Yeah.
Besides,
It's the
I have
typical
something
pressure that
that's
parents
better
put on their
than
kids. You're going to take over the family business.
Yonnus, put them down.
Shush, woman.
I thought the
Father.
actor, by the way,
Reward
David
for a
Natal,
job
who
well done.
did the voice
One
work
day you too
for
will learn
Yarborg,
these.
Yo's father, just did an
Put them in
incredible
the
job.
jar.
What a nice,
Those
clear
eggs
voice,
are
and
filthy.
A little
did a
filth
great
is
job on the
good
accent.
For the soul, no.
Wash your hands after handling those things.
Uh-oh.
No!
Yonnus frantically corralled the scattered tags amid the broken glass,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
knowing full well what was coming. A teachable moment.
I'm sorry.
Powerless and terrified.
Finish your dinner.
The family suffered alongside Yonnus. Long past the witching hour, when young lads should be dreaming of daring do and heroic feats, Yonnus tossed and turned wide awake, unable to sleep, his dark thoughts churning.
If I had a real sword, Father'd never hit us again.
If he heard you say that, you'd never breathe again.
The next morning, early. Tradecraft Day.
We had
An
fun
annual
creating
Hessian tradition. A holiday
official
celebrating the
Chaldean
hard work
holidays.
ethics of a proud,
yes, oh my God, we have a
industrious
huge list
people.
of official Chaldea
Get out here,
holidays.
you. Time to leave.
Some of them are
Godi had
quite-
risen with the
quite fun.
chickens, eager
we
to
have enough.
spend the celebratory day with his father.
Yes, they are fun. The thing that's
Yonnus
interesting
dallied.
is
Thought of
you know,
spending
humans
more
by
time with his
nature
father
like
was
to,
as
you know,
unappealing as
they
it
like to
was
celebrate.
boring.
And the thing is, we wanted to make
The
sure that
last
the
thing
celebrations
Yonnus
weren't
wanted to be was
Earth
a blacksmith.
celebrations, St. Patrick's Day, or
Suddenly,
name
doing
Valentine's
chores
Day
at
or whatever.
home,
It's like, no, these would
mucking
make
the
sense.
stables, or
So we're like,
sweeping the
okay, well,
smithy
guess what we get to do is we
didn't
get to
seem
create.
all that bad.
And we did borrow a lot of ideas from pagan holidays.
Well, yeah, and traditional sorts of holidays that you find in a variety of
We need to
cultures in
keep
the real
Sissy
world, like there's
Yonnus felt
holidays
eyes
around the
burning and
harvest,
chanced
holidays
one
around
last
planting, harvests around the various seasons.
His
And,
mother and sister watched.
and
silent,
holidays that celebrate
as if
important
they
historical
knew
moments and these sort of things. We
something.
actually sat down, we went through a calendar and looked at all the
Same
different types of
story played
holidays
out all
that
over
we
Hesse.
remember
took their
in
sons
the
to
real
work
world
while their
and
wives
kind of
and daughters
categorized them
wished
to make
them
sure
well.
that we created Chaldea versions in similar categories.
On
We have a huge
down
list
the
somewhere. Hopefully
road.
we'll lose it.
The clink and clatter of
We have it, and plus we have the ones for the
underway as
Numians,
the wagon trundled
because the
slowly
Numians
to its
are a
destination.
weekly manifestation, and
Beyond
each
Ogstad's
one
southern
has
gate,
its own
the
sphere of influence that
demarcation
affects
line
the
between
world.
city and rural living, they entered Palinhessen Kreise, Ogstad's agriculture and farming district.
Yonnus, look at me. Today will be fun for you. I promise.
Fi, what are we gonna do?
You'll see.
Ew!
Anybody who's been to stockyards knows how foul they smell.
You'll get used to the smell.
The stockyards.
The
and
voice of
repulsive
Haunt is
stench of
performed by
manure and
Tom
death.
Stewart.
As the Octoni men
I
approached
I think the
large
first time I
barn,
saw
If she
Steve's
dies,
rendition of Haunt,
you
the art
die.
for it, I was like,
If
I would
you
not want to
die,
work for this guy. This guy seems
got
like
to do
such
the
the
paperwork.
I don't know
they could
bully
hear
of a guy.
angry voices. They were met by a
Yes.
gruff foreman
The
managing
world should be
the
full of
day's
bullies for the
issue.
hero to go up against.
Right.
Hunt.
So
These
when
are my
I was
sons.
young, my
Go
dad
there,
worked for a
Yonnus.
farm. And
Very
before we
good.
went off to
I hope
school,
you ate well
or
this
during the
morning.
summer,
We are going to need
we
every
pull straws
ounce
to
of
see if we get
energy
to go to
you
work
can
with
summon.
your dad.
They're young.
And
They'll
sometimes
get
we'd
through on
be cutting hay.
enthusiasm alone.
Sometimes I remember putting in silage, all manner of different things. And so I remember going to work with my dad
The
and,
doors
being with him all day
wide to
and being
reveal a
really, really dirty
thriving
coming home.
industry.
So this, I think a lot of people,
A new,
a lot of
even
people,
fouler
kids go to work
sailed
with their
to the
parents. They don't
brothers.
even have a holiday like that now, don't they?
A slave
Um,
market.
Go to parents'
Yeah.
work day? I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
Scared,
I'm not sure.
helpless.
Yeah, I think something Steve and I have in
Dirty,
common.
foul
I was raised on a farm. At
Slaves
least I spent my summers
of
on a
every
farm all
race,
the way growing up.
ethnicity,
And
gender, and
the farm, we had cows, we had horses, we
Smell
farmed
worse than cattle, don't
wheat and barley and peas, and something special about coming from a farming environment.
they? Time to get to work.
And the clink and
So,
clatter
here,
from the wagon that Yo had been hearing
There's
all
slavery in
morning.
Chaldea.
Slave iron.
Different species of people
Slavery
enslave other
is business,
species of
boys.
people.
Always
obviously a
remember that.
Foul
Put
topic.
food on our table.
And this is hitting that
If I
topic
lose
square on the head.
one more piece of merchandise because of you, I'll dock you a
Yeah, I think this is a
big
big waking up moment for
Jesus.
Yo, realizing
Worthless
what
now.
sort of business his father is
Jonas
involved
had
in.
never seen a dead
Oh,
person
It's
before.
going to be a tough day.
She couldn't have been much older than he was.
Those heads are
So back
Jonas
when
wondered how much
I
his
was younger,
mother
the cattle, I remember that we'd go to had a dairy,
calloused
and
men
we'd
working
go and
alongside
milk the
Jonas
cows in the
and
morning.
Cody were
I
in
mean,
good
I didn't always do it
spirits.
because obviously I went to school and
Apparently
whatnot, but
unconcerned
all the cows
that they
had
were in the
tags.
business of trafficking humans,
They were
elves, and who
cattle.
knows what else.
And so here, obviously, the slaves
Jonas
also are
assisted
just
in
treated as
unloading the
cattle.
wagon, stunned by the discovery that his family business supplied the slave trade. Broken old shackles and chains, all in need of repair, were gathered, organized, and loaded back into the wagon. The volume of work required to fix the dilapidated equipment would keep Yarborg busy for a month or even months. How many slaves would need to be sold to pay for the repairs? 1? 2? More? Several long, hard hours later,
Come on, boys. Now's the best part of the day.
Yarborg gathered his boys for the day's main event.
Help yourself.
Nearby, a grand banquet had been prepared for the workers. A feast fit for a Koenig.
And Koenig, by the way, is
celebration
Germanic
of
for king.
Tradecraft Day.
I remember the first time we got this
Look at all
art
this
back.
food,
This is
and you're
before
not hungry.
Yonnus
I
couldn't
got
get the
really
dead girl out of his
involved in
mind.
doing storyboarding better,
No,
because
it's just-
all the food
I
was
don't
like
know.
Had she
really
starved?
foreign food, and it wasn't
So
Germanic
much
at all.
food.
I'm like, whoa,
And
okay.
none of it for the
Okay,
slaves.
so this is essentially, a Germanic
But for
country,
these workers,
and the food should be
and
more
drink flowed without
obviously
end.
Germanic. And so I'm like, okay, I need to be more involved on on every panel to make sure that, because if you leave something, uncalled out, an artist is just going to draw
Everyone was
whatever
encouraged to
they want
celebrate.
to do. So from basically
Everyone.
starting from this panel right here
Trademark Day
forward
means we get to
to the
celebrate.
production of Chaldea,
Earned it.
I made sure that I was staring at every
Your
panel,
mother.
and because we went back and had this panel redone. I had to have it redone.
Of course
Anyway,
it is.
interesting
Godi and
production,
Yonnus had never
information.
partaken in the consumption of ale.
We,
until
in our
now.
films, like to use a lot of historical
Don't be
places
scared.
as
Drink
inspiration.
enough of that, and you'll
We
grow a
didn't.
beard like your
We also
brother.
take a lot of liberties.
Fine.
It's we're not trying
Excellent.
to replicate these societies
Several
precisely. It is
voracious
a fantasy
hours
world
later,
that
The party
but
had not
the idea
dawned.
of picking a place like medieval Germany
The room
or
spins.
Germanic regions, it gives us a
The
way
whole
to
world spins.
gives us a way to think about
All
architecture,
manner
a
of
way to think about
desires, food, drink,
wardrobe,
tobacco,
costume people
and
would wear, what
main
sort of
course
accent
complete.
to use. And
The
I think it
dessert
helped
was
us
let
a
in.
lot in coming up with cohesive places
Sex
within
slaves.
the world.
Terrified humans and elves, whipped
And, well,
dragged
not
through
only
a
just their
gauntlet of jeering
costumes,
onlookers,
but also
were treated as
weaponry
less
and things like
valuable
that.
than orcs.
I remember
What's going on?
someone
Become
telling
a
us,
man.
oh, but this time
Follow
during
me.
Germany,
Yarbo
they had this type of
pulled the
weapon, and
girls
then at the same
roughly to
time
nearby
in Greece, they
stables.
had this kind of weapon, and the two wouldn't be together at the same time. And we're like,
Drunken men were
yeah, but they're both
already
cool,
busy
and they
taking
both are
turns.
together at the same time.
Yeah. So we use it for inspiration
Cody
and
was
an
first
attempt at
up.
Go
cohesiveness.
ahead,
But
son.
we give
Enter a
ourselves
boy,
permission to have some
come out a
variances
man.
as our
He
artistic whim.
apprehensively drew
demand.
back the curtain.
If she makes a fuss, give her a good slap. Don't disappoint me.
Godi's slave girl cried, followed by a sharp Yonnus's turn. Calla, a young Tavjan with piercing blue eyes, held his gaze. Defiant. She too couldn't have been much older than Yonnus. Despite the rags, the grime, and the dirt, she had strength, a dignity about her.
Father, no.
Don't you want to be a man?
This isn't right.
Godi staggered out and spilled his guts.
What are you doing?
It's
Stay
amazing
there
through
until
history
you're
how
finished
certain
with her.
cultures
I am
have
finished.
just treated other cultures
Well,
less than human.
In time, you'll
Right?
learn
Oh,
to
you were
last
born on the
long.
other side of the river,
Take
the other
our
side of the
time.
forest, or wherever. We're
Not
just going to
for
go
me,
raid
you
that,
idiot.
and
You keep it.
your life
It's
has
a
no
souvenir.
meaning. Right? It's horrible.
Get in there, or I'll go in there with you and show you how
Yeah,
it's done.
it's really hard to imagine how
It's
tough
not so
it would be to have
you
to be a
or
young
for her?
boy and have your father be not setting at all a good example of
You'd
proper
rather die
behavior to
then?
women and
Because
how
I
that can
prefer a
pass
dead
down
son
from
over the
generation to generation.
snot-nosed p***y I'm looking at.
Taking strength
Well, it's,
from the
Yo
slave
here
girl,
clearly has
Yonnus
a moral
stood
compass,
resolute.
right? I mean, he's
Just the same,
he's clearly
fathers
seen
are often
something's not
forced
right.
to make hard decisions.
Yeah,
how do you
it's
stand up to your
bend
and how do you stand up to
her
your
over.
father, right? I mean, how do you do that?
Pointedly.
right, the
when
pressure.
sons
And
won't heed
yeah,
their
how do you do
counsel.
that?
It's okay.
No, it was not okay.
Fine. I'll get her started.
Yarborg was left no choice but to teach by example.
I think it's a moment that we all
Yonnus had
hope
been
that
on the
in a
receiving
situation
end of his
we
father's
would
brutality.
be able to
but
rise
this,
to that.
forcing
to
himself
see
onto
it-
an innocent
it's just
girl.
like, yes, do the right thing.
Absolutely. You like to say, oh, if I was in that situation, what would I do? You would like to tell yourself, yeah, I do the right
Pent-up
thing.
anger
I'm
erupted.
not always so sure we'd always do the right thing. I say we, the royal we. I don't know.
Father!
It's really hard.
Yonnus had no idea
That's
where
a
he was
pivotal
going.
point in his.
But that's the
Only
great
that
thing
he
about a fantasy
was
story.
going.
We can say the hero
And
does
she
the right
was going
thing.
with him.
Wait, I have a brother. I can't leave him.
There's no time.
I love
Once
this
my
moment.
father tells
Like
the others,
we're just
Please.
escaping from slavers,
I'll
and you
die
want to
without
stop and
my
go rescue
brother.
somebody. No,
Brothers.
we got to get the going out
If
of
the
here. Like,
situation were reversed,
you know, you,
damn sure
you
Gobi
can't
would
tell
not return
Calla
for
no.
him.
You just can't say
Still,
no.
her pleading eyes.
Well, it's her
Yonnus
twin
had
brother.
to at least try. The pungent stench of barn-kept slaves stung their noses.
Lons!
Lons, Calla's fraternal twin.
Calla?
His riveting Tavjan blue eyes glistened in the darkness. Best not to think, and in so doing, Yonnus did the unthinkable.
Hurry!
Run! You're free!
Once the slaves sensed freedom, chaos exploded, catching the slavers woefully off guard. Total anarchy reigned supreme. Like rats off a sinking ship, they scattered, heading for the proverbial hills. Godi staggered as he cut off their escape route. Still
Now he's got to face his brother.
heavily inebriated. If father found out that he
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned. We described Calla and Lons as
Worse.
Tavians.
Seemingly
Tavians is
left
our
with no
culture
choice, he
in Chaldea
lifted
that
the
is
sword to
inspired
the
by
on-guard
Vikings,
position. A
Norse
violent
folk.
tool for
So we have
violent purposes.
a lot of references
What are you
to
doing?
Norse mythology.
Father's
and
going
Norse
to kill
culture,
you.
in our series because somebody
Sibling
really likes
rivalry,
Norse culture.
one of
I won't
Yonnus
mention his
constantly
name,
being
but his
bullied.
initials are Steve Hunt.
Finally came to a head.
By the way, there's another funny
Only
thing. Is,
if he catches
so
me. I
way back
can't let
when,
you
there were
go.
these two
Goti,
high-profile
this isn't
assassins
right.
in Chaldea called
What if she was
Lonnie and
Yasmin?
Connie.
Would you still want to
And
stop?
these two here were that took inspiration
Angry
from Lonnie and
slavers
Connie.
were
That's why it's
fast
Lons and
approaching.
Calla. Their initial
Yonnus's
start.
words shot deep into Godi like tusks
So,
from an Ardean rhino.
The number 9 is a
Eased his
pivotal
grip.
number in the
And
Norse.
Yo reacted, taking an
Norse
attack
mythology.
of opportunity.
Interesting that
The
Calla's
twins reacted in
tag
kind,
number was number
first
9.
retrieving the fallen blade, then discarding their vile
right.
slave
Yeah,
tags
to,
before triumphantly
to
following
close,
Yonnus to
associates of Yo, like
Goodbye,
these characters. Obviously, these characters
Maybe
can
you've
become
influenced.
friends. You know, you imagine 3 characters going through what these 3 characters here did. That's a basis for a lifetime bond. And as CJ's character Yo was
Gray chill
in
cast
Chaldea
all
role
over
playing
Oxford.
back in the
Hessian
80s,
city hunkered down,
Lonnie and
doors
Connie were
locked,
these 2
shutters
rogue
battered, fire
martial
burning.
artists, actually, if I remember
Souls
right, like
hidden
martial
from
artist
the
assassins
storm.
or something, who were part of the Black Daggers, and
But not
he
everyone
would,
had a warm hearth and home.
you know, go on missions with them once in a while and stuff. NPCs that Yo really liked.
Drenched and tired.
So yeah, so we
Young companions
so we
entered
got to do
Boars
their
Kreise,
backstory a bit here too,
a
by
district
putting
in
them
the
in
south
these,
end of
early
Oxford,
childhood scenes with
a
the-
popular place
with
for
Yo.
immigrants
We
and
could,
the
we
working
could
class.
effectively get a backstory for all
The
3 of these
wrong
characters.
side of the river, the wrong side of town, the wrong side of everything.
Where are you taking us? Father always said, nothing good ever happens in Boars Kreise.
In rain-slick
believe
alleys
Kreise,
and
German
garbage-littered
means
doorways,
district, correct?
the trio
Yep,
sought
that's right.
refuge from the miserable weather and equally
I think a
miserable
nice
lives.
combination
No one will
of
look for us.
artistic design and
Here.
sound design.
Despite
to
the
this,
drear,
area, really
Boars
the
Kreise
combination of
welcomed
these dark
any who
visuals
wished to
and,
breathe free.
storms and ambiance creates a real moody picture.
Little did our
of this
wayward heroes realize they were being watched, measured and weighed, their predilections assessed. This particularly keen eye took notice of all goings-on in Boars Kreise, especially those of juvenile vagrants who could be up to no good.
Where are we?
Butcher shop, I think.
No, I mean, what city?
Ogstad.
Those eyes had seen enough. A gruff dwarf,
Butcher of the
Older
Boar.
than dust and twice senior to time, startled
I think
the
it's
three.
okay to say that
His bald
Augerfeld is a
skull
character to
covered in
watch.
sacred
This
tattoos
is not the
of
last time you
yesteryear,
will see him.
marked him as a dwarven
We like this
outcast.
character quite a bit. I
Augerfeld,
think we really like the
the
idea of
butcher
outcast
of the
dwarves
boar.
to go ahead and
You
put some free
okay,
wheel on this.
Missy?
There are clan
fine.
dwarves in
They're
Chaldea.
friends.
Clan dwarves
his
tend to
gaze
stay with their
dropped to
clan,
her
tend to
neck,
be
and the symbol
shut
that
up in
marked
their
her
grand halls,
as a slave.
counting their money. The
Friends.
dwarves
Or
who
escaped
get too
slaves.
greedy or in some way offend their
Wait here.
clan and get
Let's go.
cast out
He's calling the slave
make really interesting
Shit.
characters that you
Too
can plop
bloody
into a
late.
human city.
Before they
as,
could run, he was
someone
back
trying to
with a cloak
make
and a
by.
bag.
Welcome to Boars, Kreise.
There's a little interesting, behind the scenes a story about the actor here in this role named Bill Johns. Did a great job in this role. He came in and recorded Augerfeld lines for voiceover, and it all seemed fine, and we enjoyed working with it, and everything was done. And then we filmed. You will see Augerfeld as in live action film eventually, not in this season. And Bill Johns played him, and we did I felt that Bandersnatch did a great job with the makeup and the beard and the prosthetics and everything, really bringing this character to life. And when Bill Johns inhabited that character, his voice changed down to a lower register, which we really liked. And afterwards, it's like, okay, we really like how you played Augerfeld in this series, but you used a different register in your voice, and we made him come back to the studio and re-record all his voiceover lines.
Yes, he was quite great. When he came on the set and he came alive, I remember you and I looked at each other and went, wow. Okay.
Steve and I always saw dwarves as way more serious, sort of not comic. Too often dwarves in fantasy movies are the comic relief. I loved Lord of the Rings. The only thing I didn't like about Lord of the Rings is the way they played Gimli is often just the person to tell short jokes and stuff with it. And then when The Hobbit came out with all their dwarves with all the nice hairdos and stuff like that, it's like neither one of these hit it for me. For me, the dwarves are pretty serious business, but it's a gruff exterior with a good heart underneath, and that's Augerfeld.
It's reasonably safe, but stay away from them Black Daggers. They're trouble.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to the three
Now off
voiceover
with your
actors who
clines.
played these three characters. Later on in our
Even a
story, these
gesture.
characters, when they're adults, of course, will be played by adult actors.
Dwarf
But
just wanted trouble
the
off the
children,
stoop.
the same characters as children, of course, we had to find different actors to play to perform their
Several
voiceover.
waterlogged streets
And
later,
Rochelle Henry did a great
three
job
new
as
citizens
young
of the
Calla,
Boar
we called it,
huddled
and
together for
Paul
their
Dedrick
first
did a great
meal.
job as young Lon.
Freedom
And Dustin
never
Conant did a great
tasted
job as
so
doing the voiceover for
soggy.
young Yo.
Spare some coppers, friend?
The three friends learned hard lessons.
You urchins are a disgrace. Find some honest work.
Homeless youths in any
The
city are
voiceover for
not
the man
welcome.
scolding the urchins about finding
most
honest
important,
work is performed by
survival
David
required three
White.
things.
And the voiceover for the
Food,
homeless man defending his
shelter,
turf is performed by
Mine
Alan
spot.
Harrison, who
You hear
later in
me?
this chapter also performs the voiceover for
And
Tans, Lotari's
clothing.
manservant.
They soon became pretty crafty, acquiring all three. Mostly. But then, weeks turned into months.
A scene from the
and
perspective of
street life
showing
took its toll.
What do you
these
think that
three
tastes like?
children
Chicken. Everyone
bond,
knows
a
that.
bonding moment, a little bit of the fun,
Extreme
the
hunger
messing
can
with
play
each
tricks
other
with mind,
and jibing like kids
transforming
would
a
do.
common house pet into a feast.
And these kids,
I
of course,
love
also
chicken.
had to
Give
do
me the
these
salt.
in
I'm
an
going
accent
after
as
that
well.
cat. She
We've
was
worked with some.
kidding.
I think we've worked with
You
every
haven't
accent
ever
coach
eaten
in the
cat.
city of Seattle.
Don't be so gullible.
And I
If
love
you told me
accents.
cats
I
tasted like
love
bugbear
having
stew,
characters from
my
different
mouth
parts,
would still
different
water
cultures,
from hunger.
different ethnicities,
Sorry.
genders,
Just
and
trying to lighten the mood.
but
You're on your dad.
it was a great
If it
challenge
weren't
for
for
these
you,
young
we'd
actors
still
as
be on the
children
slave pens.
to
Yes.
also
Gratitude,
adopt
brother.
a German
You're
accent for the roles, and
Both of
or a
It's
Norse
important to
accent,
keep our sense of humor,
for
though,
Lons and
and
Calla,
I reserve the right
and
to
they did a
f
great
with
job.
you when you least expect it.
As long as I can with you in return.
Perhaps a little innuendo
the
there, but
hardship of
really
street life,
just kids talking to
Friendship
each other.
and
The way they
freedom sustained
Yeah.
the young refugees. Late one evening, the city was on edge. Loud voices argued, doors slammed, followed by a child's shrill cry. Packs of roving street predators hunted for their next meal. From the shadows, something new. Something not quite natural came to the boar. A bitter wind carried a stone cold whisper. An unnatural rush of silence suddenly started Calla awake, even as the boys slept, unaware.
It's not
Her heart
safe
leapt
sleeping on
into
the
her
street.
throat. She dove for the sword. A disconcerting stillness settled over the alley, drowning out the abrasive city beyond. Silence. Calm. She knew she should wake Lons and Yo, but something prevented her from doing just that. Something was out there, just beyond her periphery.
Who's there? I have a sword.
Calla saw nothing. She heard nothing. But what she felt, she never told anyone. Mid-morning the next day. The hot sun cooked the alley something fierce, like a blood summoner's cauldron on the Feast of All Hallows Day. The sun was already high overhead when Yo slowly woke to Lon's cry and the reek of impending death.
By the way, it's sort of a side thing note here. You hear people always say gods, because there's 1,000 gods in the universe, right? So everybody says gods. They don't say God.
Right. God's damn. Yep.
Is she dead?
A little shout out to Kevin McLean here, who plays the role of Lotari von Cronenberg.
Stricken with terror,
really like working with
and
Kevin.
fearing for
Great,
Calla,
great voice work.
on.
And
They ran.
I met him on a, I don't know if you remember this, Steve, but I met Kevin doing when we did this little series called Gen Con Behind the Screen, which was a parody of life in the Gen Con office. And,
I actually did a scene with him.
Yes.
Yes.
Remember, it's great.
We should use it, remember?
That's right.
Lotari von Cronenberg.
Well, and I think, yeah, it was a great find. One of the first, when I first starting my career as a filmmaker, Kevin was one of the first people I worked with who was a really amazing actor. Him and Jim Page were the first, and probably the first two actors I worked with who were just absolutely incredible and kind of give you that taste for, okay, this is what I want when I'm casting someone who can do
with the
this.
rest
Right.
of the animals.
Yeah, he and you'll see him in a
Outsiders
live
double so in the
action
elite world of
film
luxury
later on in the
estates,
season.
Later
amid
on in
the
this season,
heron
he
and
will
the
be in
froward.
live action form and does
They
incredibly
milled
well.
about aimlessly. And every
Yeah,
so often
another
stared
fun
at the
example of
wealth
some
that surrounded them.
Germanic-inspired architecture here. I
Posh,
thought,
probably
Steve, I think your team did a
priceless
good job.
windows, marble
The
statues,
comment,
and lush
Aaron and the
manicured
Frowen
gardens.
sort of reminds me, Steve,
Calla
of some of
was
the long
inside.
discussions we had about
She might
when
just as well
to
have been
bring in an
1,000
actual
miles
real
away.
world German
They
word
knew
and when not
nothing
to.
yet of her condition.
Remember that?
Yeah, yes. I was going to mention that earlier. There's a lot of term. Well, we use Koenig, right? Earlier, like I said, it's the German version of king, and Königin is queen.
And we just said
Once
Volksgraf, which is
indoors,
a
time
German word
progressed
for
even
a
slower.
noble.
Like the endless thimble winter.
Yeah,
of
yeah. It
legend.
was it looks
Idle and active
once in a while we
hands
throw
summon
in
the
a
devil's
word
work,
that helps
so
us
the saying went.
sort of emphasize the culture of the region. A good tool for
Tanis
that, but try
returned.
not to overdo it. You
As
know.
the head butler, he ran a tight ship.
I think this is kind of funny. You just can't help but
He
like
did not
a
abide
couple of
ever
kids
with
who are
demon
orphaned on the
shenanigans or
street, and suddenly
teenage
they're in
tomfoolery.
a nobleman's big
Eventually,
fancy house. And
Falsgraf
what do they do?
Cronenberg
You try to be nice
returned.
for a little while, then pretty soon they're
Yo
doing
and
things
Lawrence
like,
had
oh,
never
what how
met,
sharp this
nor
sword
could
is.
they
You know what I
ever
mean?
even seen a noble before.
Yep.
And here they were.
Especially, it's funny because Yo is attracted to the sword, of course.
And now,
If I had my own sword, right? It's like, oh, it's a weapon. Look at this. Oh, look at it, it's sharp.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is
it's
what was
Yo's
lost a
attraction
lot.
to swords is going to be
Will she
a
live?
recurring theme in this
Touching,
series.
but I believe so. My personal physician is looking after her. She's in good hands.
Oh, thank you, Master Cronenberg.
Call me Lotari.
If there's anything I can do ever to repay you.
Perhaps we should discuss that. Won't you join me, gentlemen? Tell the kitchen to bring food.
Here for, as you wish.
I run a small, thriving business. Sadly, due to high turnover, I always am looking for new blood. Ever heard of the Black Daggers?
Everyone has heard
It's
of
so funny
Black
the
Daggers,
name
sir.
Black Daggers. I mean, so this was the name of the Thieves Guild from my 1980s Chaldea game that CJ's character Yo was a member of
You
this
offering
Thieves
us
Guild. And
jobs?
so it is
Nothing so
kind of a
chivalrous as
campy
that.
name, right? I mean,
I'm providing you a
we
way to
came up to
repay me
here
for
and we were going to
saving
rename
Calla's
this
life.
guild or something else. Steve did not want to use the
Send
term
in Mr.
Black
Dancer.
Daggers, but we did.
A halfling
I said,
interrupted
screw
the
it,
boy's
Black
meal.
Daggers. I don't care if it's campy. Let's just go for it.
An arrogant pint-sized bottle of trouble sauntered in. Dancer Dowiggle. Lotari's
Dancer,
chief
yeah. What do you
lieutenant.
want to say about Dancer? So Dancer's also a
sharp
character
eyes
from
and
the
spy
RPG
the mouth
back in the
of a
80s. He was halfling
New
badass
recruits.
for the Black
Put them to
Daggers.
work.
He was
Make
the
sure they
guy
learn
that
their
you better watch. You better watch him back when he came around.
I don't think we changed him at all.
Yeah,
I think he's just exactly the same. It's not, if we were writing a novel and we had, 800 pages to write, thered be details that come out more. They come out a little on later on, but, there's a lot of halflings around town that are related to him.
Yeah, he gets around. He's a lot of.
He gets around.
Yeah, some halfling comes up to him and asks him for money. He can't say no because it might be his kid.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think and a nice shout out to Sammy who plays Dancer here. Does a great job, and you'll see Sammy portray him also in the live action film.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, Sammy had no trouble whatsoever saying, "Oh, I know who this character is," and just role played him, performed him, I should say, perfectly right out of the gate.
Role play.
Yeah, when Sammy came to perform these lines and this character, he was like, when I do an English accent, I tend to go into an Irish accent. I don't know that I can stay out of Irish accent. Is it okay? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, go for it. Irish. So yeah, Irish accent halfling. That's fine.
And it just so happens that we have a Irish-inspired culture called Dorsang, and he's Dorian.
Yeah, that's right. He's also kind of the halfling equivalent of a drill sergeant in a way, right? I mean, it's kind of fun to play with the the archetypical drill sergeant meme, which is like in war movies all the time. Yeah, have a halfling version of a drill sergeant in a Thieves Guild. Why not?
Yeah, and the thing is that his personality is so strong that it doesn't matter that he's half their height.
Peacefully oblivious to the dangers lurking in her opulent surroundings.
Don't worry.
So there you go. That's our director's commentary for chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed the film, and I hope you enjoyed our comments.
I much prefer 3.5. The simplification of skirmish formations was long overdue.